And we are back to talk about what the hell happened at WorldCon with George R. R. Martin. Lots of weird stuff, some sad, some interesting, some funny, but
weird. From what I hear, weird stuff, but nothing good, nothing to celebrate, is what you're saying.
Well, yeah. So by now, if you guys are here,
He didn't. I mean, we're putting the big story up front. He didn't announce Winds of Winter, okay? He didn't say he was anywhere close. He didn't give a page count. He didn't do any of that. Is anything that Carmine was somewhat hoping for.
Well, it's gotta. You and Trey have all given up. I have to hold that flag, and I will hold it for as long as I can, Preston. I will hold on to hope. He did say during the panel that he was working on it, so that's just keeping me alive. It's keeping the flame going. But no, the one thing that people want to know about is the craziness that happened. And the craziness was someone went up to George's face and basically said, "Hey, George, since you're going to die, is Sanderson," who was sitting next to George, "is Sanderson going to be the one to write the story for you?" And
yes.
Before we go further, because I'm psychic, I know exactly what's going to happen. Some random is going to come into my comment section to accuse you and me of doing something like this. Yeah, no. Neither of us have ever told George or even said that he's going to die and to give it to Sanderson. My opinion, which I've noticed some people think it's a gotcha moment, throwing it back at me, like, no, I stand by it, is that I think he should delegate someone to help him write it or to just do it for him while he oversees. Something George says he doesn't want to do, which I'm fine with, it's cool. But I would just rather he announce that he doesn't want to do the whole story anymore, which, again, I would be fine with. This is my personal opinion. I know for a lot of the young Gen Zs who never read the books but just discovered the series yesterday and watched the show in the background while scrolling through TikTok, that a different opinion than they have is scary and bad. But at the end of the day, if you can't tell the difference between, "I think you should make a decision with this," versus, "You're gonna die, give it to that guy," then you're as dumb as the person who said this to George. And for the person who did say it, before they asked what they asked, they brought up Kentaro Miura, who wrote the Berserk manga, and Miura passed away a while back. The reason this is important is because the company who publishes Berserk waited 1 year after Miura's passing to decide to continue with the story and chose Miura's best friend, Koji Mori, to continue for him. That's why Berserk was brought up. I wanted to put that context in there because a lot of the clips I saw didn't include it. Sanderson being chosen as the guy to take over will always confuse the hell out of me because their styles are nowhere near similar. I even have a whole video on why he isn't the guy for the job. I put it out almost a year ago. But the entire fandom, most of it at least, universally agrees that he'd be a bad fit for the job. So
okay, first, very briefly, let me summarize why Sanderson would be a very poor choice. One, Sanderson is a clunky writer. There are lots of things to love about Sanderson. He sometimes writes sentences that are very beautiful, but everyone admits he is often very clunky. And so that is not George's writing style. George is very poetic and beautiful in his writing style. He's great. Even what's funny is when I criticize my least favorite chapters of a Game of Thrones or a Dance with Dragons or a Storm of Swords, I will always admit they're beautiful chapters. They're beautiful chapters, but my criticism is something like they don't go anywhere or they contradict or this character is acting completely differently than they should. My criticisms are I've never had a criticism of his writing style. His writing style has always been consistently beautiful. He is an incredible prose writer. Sanderson is not that. That's the first thing. The other thing is Sanderson does not write about sex. He is proud of the fact that he doesn't write about sex, and let's be honest, sex is an enormous part of A Song of Ice and Fire. It's an enormous part of life. And I believe that George includes sex in his prose and his story because it's such a huge part of life. And so if you were to remove sex from A Song of Ice and Fire, oh my God, like, how can you finish the story? How could you possibly finish the story without sex? But yes, no, Sanderson, no.
Yeah, this is this has been something that has the Sanderson question, as I call it, has been prevalent in the community for years, even before you and I started our channels more than 10 years ago. This is not a new thing, right? And George has said that he doesn't want anyone else to take over. I acknowledge that. And yeah, so real quick, let me give more of what happened here, because I spoke to at least 5 people who were in the audience. And yeah, so essentially what happened is that the panel, they were talking, everybody on panel, Sanderson, George, and a few other people, they were all talking. Panel ends, and they were going to take some questions. And 3 people managed to get their questions off. The first one asked George something, the second asked Sanderson, and the third was this person. Now, what's really weird here, and kind of unhinged, is that this person basically said to George, before they asked what they asked, they said, "Hey George, remember me? I was the one auditioning for Visenya." And everyone that I spoke to was like, what the fuck are they talking about? What? And then they said what they said. While they were saying what they said, mid-sentence, some of the organizers rushed to grab the mic from their hands. Apparently the questions weren't pre-screened, people weren't pre-selected or nothing like that. It was just off-the-cuff stuff. And I think they were recording it because one of the organizers or the people in charge basically scolded this person and said we had such a lovely evening, but you had to go and ruin it. And as the person who asked the question was walking out, one of the attendees who I spoke to basically said someone confronted them and said, "You should apologize." And the person basically said, "I was just kidding. It wasn't that serious. I was just kidding." And I'm like, dude, come on. And I asked this person, did they look like they were in their early 20s? Was it some edgelord? Everyone's like, no, it was quite clearly a very grown adult. And again, I hate that I have to keep reminding people of this. There's a difference between saying, "Come on, George, finish the books already," versus, "You're gonna die, fat boy," which I've seen a lot of people say, "You're gonna die, that you should do this, this, and this." There's a massive difference between that. And I'm pretty sure George doesn't really look through a lot of this stuff.
Yeah, that's crazy. That is crazy.
So, as sad as there is to say, there is more to this, but I don't know how much I want to say or can, so I'll keep it brief and vague. Some people in the community managed to figure out who it was, and the person was not only bragging about it on their social media that George wasn't that upset with them, but in the same video they say how they had a cease and desist against them from George's theater company. I have no idea what's going on with that. And of course, people were asking what the reaction was from the audience and the panel, and the basic reaction was, everyone's in agreement with this, is that both the audience and all the authors on the panel defended George. I asked what George's reaction was. 2 people said he didn't react at all, and one other person said he was kind of taken aback a little. But Sanderson did defend him, which I like to hear that. Good guy, Sanderson.
Sure.
And most of the audience were just either booing or telling the person to get the fuck out of there. So I love that. I also want to make this very clear, because I saw this a lot on social media. Ice and Fire fans can be annoying sometimes. You and I know that very well. Yeah. But I do love how most of the community has kind of come together to rally around George and support him and condemn this person. Because, Ice and Fire fans most of the time are not as insufferable as, Star Wars fans. Let's be real here. Let's...
Yeah, no, it's really, it's sad to hear. That's just mean, and admit, because we know that George is sensitive about that. Some people are like, George,
Actually, on the topic, you bringing up sensitivity, he did say earlier in the panel that, and this is something you and I face, I feel like we do, sometimes that one mean comment can really put him in a sad mood for the rest of the day, which, I hate that happened, because, that just reinforces that. And yeah, George doesn't deserve that. Again, you and I have our issues sometimes with the way he does certain things. I've made jokes that George would rather do everything but write the books, but I would never say to his face, "Hey man, you're gonna die. Can you just have someone else do it for you?" Right. That's just not
cool.
Yeah.
Not cool.
So
it's just also not the time and place. Also, like, what do you explore? Also, he's answered that question a million times already. Like, you don't need to ask it again. This is the weird thing, is when people look at their opportunity to ask George a question and they ask him something he's answered a million times. Like, a lot of people ask him, like, oh, do you have any advice for new writers? And it's like, do you know how many people have asked that, and how many times I've seen George answer that question? Like, Jesus, like, why would you waste that?
actually, it's funny you bring that up.
Yeah.
About questions that George has answered before, because one of the people who asked him a question, I think the first person, they asked him like how he incorporates religion into his work so well, something he has already answered before several times.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, they want to answer they want to give a nice, friendly softball question, but at the same time, like, he's gotten those softball questions before, so I would not waste it on that, but whatever, because he has stock answers in his head. He has stock answers in his head that he just kind of goes into when you do that.
He also has a series of hits he likes to go over every time. So as someone who has covered George's interviews for like the past couple of years now, he's starting to say the same things over and over again. So at one point during the panel, he says, and I'm quoting here, "You have these adaptations and they change every fucking thing." Yeah, he's complained about this at least 5 times this past year.
Yeah, he's really on that adaptation thing. Yeah, like yeah, let it go. I mean, this is how you made your hundreds of millions of dollars, is on adaptations. So that's what they're doing. They're adapting your stuff, and when they adapt it, they change it, because that's what.
To be fair, Preston, if and when HBO comes to adapt your book, The Dreams of Ghosts and Indians, and they change Indians to Australians, you would probably have an issue with it, because it's like, it's a little...
Oh, sure. I'm sure. That's the thing, is we're not in his shoes. And so who's to say? You're absolutely right. I will say, but yeah, he's talking about, you're right, that he's bringing his greatest hits around.
The other thing, real quick, to end the George thing on the nice moment, these two men, they brought George this book of like a bunch of people's handwritings and art to show him some appreciation, and apparently from the guys who showed it to George, he was very grateful. He did really like it. It did lighten his spirits up. So that, that's a good thing. So shout out to those guys who did that. Some other people were able to get a conversation with one of his assistants. Ironically, the assistant was basically in charge of trying to keep George focused and on point. And the assistant even, I'm not going to say the guy's name, but the assistant even mentioned that he has a tough time doing that sometimes, because George is pulled every which way by all these other projects. So it's tough to keep him on track of writing the books. One of the funny things from that interaction was the assistant said how George, almost 30 years later, is still in denial about how bad the Doorways pilot was.
But the assistant agreed that the Doorways pilot is not great.
That wasn't made clear, but
yeah. The one of the things that I because you've seen Sliders, right?
Is that basically Doorways but better? And who was in that?
Well, what's funny is that George has said the reverse. He's like, it's Doorways, it's Sliders but good. That he, like, George,
Jerry O'Connell's in it, and John Rhys Davies. Yes,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that first season of Sliders is quite fun. But George has said the reverse. He's been like, he actually trashes Sliders, and he says, "Oh, Doorways." Like, I've seen him writing about Sliders, and he's like, or about Doorways and Sliders. Like, one, he's angry that Sliders stole the idea, but two, he's just like, "Oh, I had it first, and it was good." Like, he's like, Doorways was Sliders, but good is what he claimed. And it's like, I've seen Sliders and I've seen Doorways, and Sliders is much better. I'm not saying Sliders is genius or anything. I'm not saying it's it's not Andor season 1. But it's fun. It's a fun what's fun about first season of Sliders just feels very like Flash Gordon pulp sci-fi. It has this fun pulp sci-fi feel brought because Jerry O'Connell is so good and he's so fun, and the supporting characters are so fun. While Doorways doesn't have that. Doorways is we watched it. We did our Doorways review. We went through it.
Yes. We for the audience who wants to know, we Preston, Trey, and I did like a whole Doorways discussion. And what did you title it? You titled it. I love the title. It was this. Had this show taken off, Game of Thrones wouldn't have happened, or something like that. Ice and Fire wouldn't have happened.
The idea is that had it been successful, we wouldn't have had Game of Thrones, because he would have But so it's like, thank goodness it was horrible. Is the idea?
thank goodness.
Thank goodness it was horrible. Yeah. The show that nearly destroyed Game of Thrones and A Song of Ice and Fire. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah, the show that nearly destroyed Ice and Fire. But yeah, and other than that, no, it was pretty by the numbers, basic panel interview thing. George didn't really give anything new out. It was, the greatest hits, these adaptations, they change everything. Still working on the books, yada yada yada. Just stuff you've heard before. As much as I would love to meet George and get something signed by him, which some people believe he signed over 200 signatures, I don't see the point until Winds does come out. Like, I would want to see him after Winds comes out, because then that way, like, some of the stuff he might say will be new. But until then, would it be cool to meet the guy that I pretty much, base my channel around? Of course, 110%. But also, I want the experience to be, maybe I'm being a bit selfish, but I want it to be a bit more memorable than him just saying stuff he said before. Or not being able to say anything at all because, he's still writing Winds. So, I guess that's where I'm at.
So you're going to ask him all about the Harangan mines when you see him.
Unironically, you know what? Just to put this to bed, yes, I will ask about the Harangan mines, what they look like, and he's going to give me the same answer he probably gives everybody, which is he doesn't remember.
Well, probably. That'll probably be the answer. He has been asked once about it 20-some years ago. Someone said, hey, I was just wondering if you ever had an idea about what the Harangan mines looked like. The question wasn't even, what do they look like? It was, did you have an idea in your head of what they looked like? And he said, yes, no, I'd come up with like what I thought they looked like. Yeah. And it was his response, but he never told. So, but it's, I think at this point, I think we should just, straight up ask him, like, can you describe what the Harangan mines look like?
I think I've said this 1,000 times before, and I'll say it one more time. I think where I'm at right now with the whole situation is, it would be great if he finishes it, but I've begun leaning more towards, I would rather, my personal preference, even though George has said before that he doesn't want to do this, I would rather he either choose someone to, work with, to do it with him or for him, or have like a team of people. Again, I know what he said, but at this point, I'm also edging more towards if he announces like a retirement or something that he doesn't want to finish the story, I think I would be okay with that.
The thing is how can you really be upset? Because here's the thing. I don't think he's going to finish, and you're pretty sure he's not going to finish. I understand that you're more optimistic than me, and give different percentages. But like him saying I'm just going to retire and not finish, the result is the same. We're not getting Wins and Dance. I mean, we're not getting Wins and Dream. Like, the result of him saying, thanks, I'm just not going to do it, versus him saying he's going to do it and not doing it, ends with the same result.
I have faith.
I could see how you're fine with it, because there's no fucking difference.
And that is why I have faith. I can have enough faith for the both of us. And him announcing the retirement thing real quick before we sign off, I think that would just give me some closure instead of being strung along. But again, whatever he decides to do, I will support it. Preston, I hope you don't mind if we end it here. Guys, thank you so much for joining us as always. We'll see you all next time. Have a good one.